Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel, and this is Nikita. So in the previous videos, I hope you have learned what is psychology, what are the first two pillars. So today we'll discuss another very important pillar, that is development. Developmental psychology. So in the further slides, let us learn what is developmental psychology, what are the domains, perspectives, and even the factors affecting development. What is developmental psychology? So, basically, when we think of development, we naturally think of children growing up into adults. But even as adults, we never really stop changing, right? So, this developmental psychology or the lifespan development studies the growth and changes that occur in an individual across the lifespan from birth to death, like from conception to death. So, we develop into a whole package, like it includes cognitive development, personality development, moral development, social development, sexual development, reproduction, physiological development. So, what are the objectives of learning this development? So, we can find out what are the common and characteristic age changes in like appearance, behavior, interests, like from one period to another. And you can also find out when these changes occur, what causes them, if they can be predicted or not, and even if they are individual or universal. Developmental domains. These are the main areas of study that focus on developmental changes of an individual. Before learning the domains, let us know the difference between growth and development. Growth is basically the changes in the body proportion, like the change in the height, weight, etc. So these changes are only till a period of time, but development continues throughout the lifespan. So now the first domain, biosocial domain, here the growth takes place. That is, it studies the influence of social factors on biological development. And now cognitive domain. This studies the thought process, perceptual abilities, and language that influence our behavior and development. For example, we can say as we grow, we develop the abilities to solve the difficult problems. Now, psychosocial domain. This domain studies the interpersonal relationships that influence development. Like when we are child, we only know our family members, and then slowly when we grow up, we get to know friends and the other society. So here these relationships influence our development. And now let's learn about the five perspectives of development. The first one, multidirectional. The development of a particular domain does not occur in a strictly linear fashion, but that development of certain traits can be characterized as having the capacity for both an increase and decrease in efficacy over the course of an individual life. So, in a simpler means, I would say, let us consider a domain self regulation. So, this undergoes profound multi-directional changes. Like in childhood, the child has difficulty effectively regulating his actions and impulse behavior, whereas in the course of puberty, during the adolescent period, the ability to regulate these impulse behaviors is increased. And now, the multi contextual. What is meant by the word context? It means that we are influenced by when and where we live. Our actions, beliefs, and values are a response to the circumstances surrounding us. So, contexts like age, gender, race, ethnicity, socio-economic status, so all these influence our development. Multicultural. Culture is often referred to as a guideline shared by a group of people that specifies how to live, and it also includes the ideas of what is right and wrong. Culture is basically learned from parents, schools, media, friends, and even through devotional ways throughout our lifetime. So these cultures serves to help members function in their own society and to value their own society. And we usually tend to believe that our cultures and beliefs are the right ones. Multidisciplinary. We have to use many different fields in order to effectively study the human development. So, those fields include biology, sociology, psychology, education, economics, religion, history, anthropology, etc. Now, the last one is the plasticity. Development changes occur throughout the lifespan and can be drastically altered at any point of time. So, for example, I would say recently researchers have been analyzing how other senses compensate for the loss of vision in blind people. Without visual input, blinds demonstrated that their auditory and tactile senses are fully developed and can use them to perceive the world. After the research, the findings suggested that when vision is absent in development, the auditory cortices in the brain recruit areas that are normally devoted to vision, thus becoming further refined, that is, usually better than normal people. Developmental issues. There are three fundamental issues during the study of development: nature versus nurture, stability versus change, continuous versus discontinuous. As we all know, nature is the inherited biological characters in us, whereas nurture is the environmental influence on our development. So, what do you think? Which is more likely to influence our development? Yes. Today, however, most psychologists support an interactionist model which sees both inborn genetic processes and the environmental factors contributing to the human development. And now, stability versus change. In this debate, some psychologists preferred that personality or the temperament is stable and continuous, whereas others said they change as a child develops at different stages. Now, continuous versus discontinuous. In this, the continuous supporting psychologist said that human development is a gradual and a continuous process with no sudden changes, whereas the psychologist supporting discontinuous said that it is a series of abrupt changes and each of them elevates into a new learning and development. So, both the ways a human develops. And now, factors affecting development. So, basically, these factors are divided into internal factors and external factors. So, internal factors include genetics, heredity, physical maturation, physical strength, appearance, cognition, whereas the external factors include environment, socioeconomic status, parenting, resources, poverty. So, these are the critical periods in a human development, which starts from prenatal and finally, as you all know, it ends at the old age. So, now let's learn about the first stage, as you have seen, the prenatal stage, that is the prenatal development. So, from now, I will be explaining you the major happenings during the 9 months before birth to emphasize the significance of the moment of conception and to show what environmental and psychological factors affect the course of the development. Conception. This occurs the moment a sperm cell fertilizes the ovum cell, forming a single celled zygote. And after conception, the prenatal stage starts. Basically, the prenatal development is divided into three stages: germinal, embryonic, and fetal. As you can see, the germinal lasts till 2 weeks, and then from third to eighth week, it's embryonic stage, and from the ninth week to the birth, it's the fetal stage. So, now in the coming slides, let's learn each of them briefly. Now, the first stage, that is the germinal stage. So, this happens after 2 weeks of conception in one of the fallopian tubes. Zygote travels to the uterus, and in the process, the cell division occurs. So, after rapid cell division, the fertilized egg becomes blastocyst, and then it's attached to the wall of uterus. So, once the zygote is successfully attached, the germinal stage is over. So now for more clear view, here we have the period of zygote. So as you see, firstly, the single-celled mature ovum discharged on the days of menstrual cycle is fertilized, and then the cell starts to divide. So it divides into two cells, and then four, and then eight, and then 16. So this whole process of division is called as cleavage. So now here an interesting fact is that the structure doesn't really grow, but it's just the cells that divide. And in the post fertilization, this zygote forms as blastocyst with 32 or more cells. The cells inside this are called the embryonic cells. So then this blastocyst implants to the uterine wall, and here the process ends. So now let's discuss about the second stage, which is the embryonic. The period of embryo lasts from implantation to the 8th week. So basically by the 3rd week, the embryonic disc is rapidly differentiating into 3 cell layers. The first one is the outer layer, that is ectoderm, which will become the nervous system, skin and hair. The middle layer is the mesoderm, which becomes the muscles, bone, and circulatory system part. The inner layer, endoderm, will become the digestive system, lungs, urinary tract, and other vital organs such as pancreas and liver. So in this stage, the brain and the spinal cord connects, and even the life system develops and organs start to appear. So here I've given a brief picture of the developments in the baby from 3rd to the 8th week. Now let's enter to the last and the most important stage, which is the fetal stage. So in this stage, the first arm and feet movement are felt by the mother. Fetus gets more active as months are passing, and genitals are formed, the heartbeat is detectable, and brain is able to regulate basic body functions. Fat layers are formed, organs are maturing, and by 8th or ninth month, the baby is fully developed and is ready to survive outside the mother's body. As you see in the picture, the baby settles down lower in the abdomen, preparing for the birth. That is all about the three stages. And now the prenatal period has some important characteristics, each of which has a lasting effect on development during the lifespan. Firstly, the hereditary endowment, which serves as the foundation for later development, is fixed once for all this time. The changes here will be quantitative but not qualitative. Secondly, the favorable conditions in the mother's body can foster the development of hereditary potentials, while unfavorable conditions can stunt their development. The third one is proportionally greater growth and development takes place during the prenatal period than at any other time throughout the individual's entire life. The individual grows from a microscopically small cell to an infant who measures approximately 20 inches in length and weighs on an average of 7 pounds. So it has been estimated that weight during this time increases 11 million times. Here, the development is likewise phenomenally rapid. And now, the last one is the prenatal period is the time when significant people form attitudes towards newly created individuals. These attitudes will have a marked influence on the way these individuals are treated, especially during their early formative years. So, now let's discuss the physical hazards during these three periods. So, during the period of zygote, starvation, lack of uterine preparation, implantation in wrong place is going to affect the development of the baby or even the birth of the baby. And in the period of embryo, miscarriages, maternal malnutrition, smoking, and drinking. And in the period of fetus, miscarriages, prematurity, that is when the baby is born in the seventh month, and then complication in delivery, development irregularities, smoking, and drinking. So, what are the effects of these physical hazards? If development irregularities are very serious, the child will be deformed in some way, but they may be undiagnosed for years even after birth. It is a well known fact that malnutrition will lead to damage of brain and later learning difficulties may engulf the child. So these physical hazards during this period leaves behavioral disturbance in the child till 2 years or even more. And mainly parents will find difficulty to accept a defective child and often feels guilty of causing the trouble. The most important is smoking and drinking during this pregnancy period will have negative effects in child. Teratogens. Teratogen is any agent that causes abnormalities when a developing baby is exposed to it during the mother's pregnancy. These environmental exposures can cause birth defects and other problems. Teratogens can have effects that range from mild to severe, and they are often most dangerous during early pregnancy and with excessive or prolonged exposure. Types of teratogens. Perhaps the two most important teratogens today are alcohol and smoking. They are among the leading preventable causes of birth defects and developmental disabilities. Other agents include drugs, which are like prescribed or recreational drugs, infectious agents like rubella, varicella, etc., physical agents like radiation, hypothermia, maternal health factors like diabetes or any other health issues, and environmental chemicals like organic mercury compounds or herbicides and even the industrial solvents. And now comes the psychological hazards. The psychological hazards can have persistent effects on the individual's development and can influence the postnatal environment. There are mainly three important psychological hazards. They are traditional beliefs about prenatal development, maternal stress, and the unfavorable attitudes towards the unborn child. So, this is the summary and an overview of the prenatal development. So, on concluding this, I would like to say prenatal period is significant as the child's behavior in future will be determined during this period itself. Irregularities in this stage of development will surely contribute to the future problems. Thank you everyone, and please stay tuned for the next stages in the upcoming videos.